Hello guys, Fuzz here, and here we go once again with more Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy VIII to be specific, of course. So thanks for joining me today, and as always, don't forget, I know it gets repetitive me asking this, but it really does support me if you just hit that like button on YouTube, and subscribe to the channel, of course. So we finished off with Fisherman's Horizon, or FH as the locals like to call it, in the last episode of this series. And today we're just going to be making our way first of all to the bridge, which means we're going to be, this is a ship now of course, so if you're joining a little bit later and you're wondering why I'm saying bridge when we're talking about garden here, then it will all be made apparent in a moment. But we're going to head to the bridge for some scenes, and then we're going to spend most of today, maybe all of today, see how we get on, I'm not sure yet, but spend most of today doing some optional stuff, boosting up our characters. There's some fun stuff we can start getting done now. So first of all, we'll get through the story. And it looks like Quistis is waiting for us. Squall has been promoted to the new commander now by Sid. Not that he's particularly best pleased about that, of course. Okay, so we can switch party members as we're exploring here, but Selfie is not going to be usable for the foreseeable future, so we'll have to pick from the other members. Okay, so our next story destination is Balam. That's the town, of course. But we're in no rush to go there. So we can speak to Nida here and tell Nida that we are ready to go. And now he's going to pilot the garden for us, so we can just sit back and relax. Okay, so we'll throw our party together, and I think we'll go for, let's go for Zell and Quistis for now. It doesn't really matter too much, we can change as and when we want to do so. Okay, so we get our instructions there on how to control this thing. And we can just kind of like swim around the ocean, and we can go on land, but we have to go to the beach to do so. We can't like fly high in the air. Look, crash. There we go, so we can have a good old bit of exploring to do, a bit of freedom on the world map. Always nice when you get to this kind of stage in a Final Fantasy game, isn't it? It's a bit of a tradition as well in the older games. So, right then, couple of things that we can do then. The first is going to involve the CC group. Remember, we were playing cards with them earlier, and I highly suggest that you do this quest, since the reward on Disc 4 is pretty darn fantastic. So we'll just hit the menu button to head back to Garden here, and the actual card player we want is the Card Queen Heart, and it's this female seed here, but we do need to go and save first. By the way, this lady also has the Carbuncle card, which you'll probably want to play her until you are able to win that. And if you haven't already, you might want to head back to the Card Magician Joker, which was the first guy we fought after the introductory card game, And he was in the training centre, if you remember, on the bridge. He doesn't always appear, so you might have to go in and out until he does so, just to get the Leviathan card that he rarely plays, but it is important now to try and start collecting all the rare cards that we can get. So we'll go and save, and we'll start doing some of the cards. Okay, so when you're ready and all saved up, and by the way, I did just switch out Zell for Rinoa, since both Zell and Quistis should be used as either strength or defensive characters, so I did need a magic character in here, which is why I switched Zell out for Rinoa. And if they ask you to mix rules, by the way, these card guys, you don't want to, so just keep declining until they stop asking. But then if we speak to the female siege, she'll mention that Spade lost. Spade was the last one that we fought, the Prince, Card Prince Spade. He was the one near the elevator, if you remember. So we shall begin with Zoo. And remember, she can play the Carbuncle card. So even if you win, but she doesn't play it, you'll probably want to play it a few more times. Let's go for Cypher. I don't usually play Renoa because her stats aren't particularly that useful, I don't find, believe it or not. I like good all-rounders more than anything. Siren and Ifrit, or Ifrit. And perhaps, yeah, we'll go for Siren. Okay, so no Carbuncle. But if we can at least beat this game, or win this game, then we can move on to the next. Actually, she's the last of the normals. Then we get to go to the final card boss, if you like. If you want to call it that, I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to mess this up, so I'll just concentrate for a little moment in time. Ah, didn't take that one. Fair enough. We'll block the take, as they say. And looks like we've got this one. Thank you for your cards. Ah, Pork Zoo. Right, so the final guy is simply known as King, the Card Master. But finding King is actually half the challenge, since he's not just somebody we can run up to. First of all, we have to have beaten all the other card CC group members, which starts, of course, with Jack. So check back with the previous episodes, over the last couple of episodes, in fact, to find out who they are, or where they are. There's Jack, who kicks off the quest. Then there's Card Magician Joker, he's the one that holds the Leviathan card in the trading centre. Then there's Card Knight Club, who's in who you'll find at the exit to the dormitory. You have to do them in this order. And then there's the Card Princess Diamond, which is the same place as where we find Jack. And then there's Card Prince Spade, who is, where was he? Oh, he was the one that's on the second floor hallway. And then, of course, there's Card Queen Heart right here. And now Card Master King is about to come up once I've won the Carbuncle card. And there we go, I've won the Carbuncle card. Thank you very much. I also got a few Ultima weapon cards, which are really quite useful because they can go down into Ultima stones, which, although we just simply can't turn them into Ultima magic yet, simply casting them causes tremendous amounts of damage. Right, so in order to get to the Card Master King, we first need to play Kadawaki, the infirmary doctor. We can speak to this guy here and he'll give us a bit of a hint. But it's really not necessary to do so. So we'll go down and save our game. Okay, so Dr. Kadawaki will tell us that we have defeated the other members of the CC group. But she, of course, has nothing to do with the CC group. Although she used to be the CC group king for a long time. But can't actually tell us who the new one is. Fair enough. Fair enough. So we will play her with cards and hopefully win. I'm sure we will. Just go for 5 decent cards here. As we can see, Kadawaki does play some high-level cards, so we do need to be on the game a little bit so that we don't mess this up. A little tactic that I've noticed which can be helpful is just because you can take a card doesn't mean you should take a card. In this case, I am going to take a card, but you don't have to. Try and look for a good time where you can take a card, and obviously they can't take a card on their next turn, such as here. That actually makes quite a big difference. So it looks like we've won this one. And now, that's the first part in unlocking the final person. Now we have to go back to the dormitory and keep resting. Randomly, after resting, you'll eventually get this message. You defeated the 4 suits. You've proven yourself worthy. Is Quistis? So, make sure before you actually start resting, you save, which I did. And Quistis can have the Gilgamesh card. By the way, once we've defeated her here, she will then appear on the bridge to be challenged at any point afterwards if you wanted to farm for that card. We're going to use her own card against her. And look, her cards are terrible. It's embarrassing. Actually, I shouldn't speak too soon yet. We don't know if we're going to win, do we? There we go. Nice easy game to finish off with. So I get an achievement for that, although I don't think that shows up on the video. Okay, so that is actually the end of the quest. Well, at least all the hard work of the quest. Our main reward comes on disc 4, which is where we can re-challenge all of the CC group members, and they will actually hold all the rare cards that we no longer have. For example, we lost them, or we refine them down into items, and we can actually farm those rare cards for refining down into items as many times as we want to. So it's a very, very, very lucrative quest to do, and one I highly would recommend. Perhaps because this quest has taken place over several episodes, I will create a special episode just to help some folks out that don't want to watch the whole walkthrough, just so they can see how to do this quest in particular. Because you don't have to space it out. I've just done each member and fought each member as they became available to do so. But even if you're on like disc 3, then you can just do the whole quest in one go if you really want to. But I wanted to get it done as soon as we could, as well as the rare cards we've just won, of course. And speaking of which, I do want to challenge Quistis on the bridge for that Gilgamesh card. So I'll save and see you back up there. Okay, so my first game, and Quistis does very kindly decide to play the Gilgamesh card, which is helpful. So we'll go ahead and try and win this from her. And we could actually make some progress here. No, we can't, because we could actually be in a bit of trouble. We'll have to just put that there for now. Okay, we'll put that there. This should win us. They'll take the Ifrit card. Okay, decided not to take the Ifrit card, so we'll win either way. If they'd put the bomb where I put Zal, then I would have put Zal where they put the bomb, and that would have taken the tiger thing above. So either way, we would have ended up with the same score. But there we have the Gilgamesh card acquired. And that's it for the CC group quest. Well, that last bit that I just showed you wasn't actually part of the quest, that was just an extra card. So now we can speak to Nida and tell him that we are ready to go. We are happy with our party. And our next destination, secret destination if you like, we don't have to go there as part of the actual story, is known as the Centra Ruins. And what you want to do is just come to this beach here on this island, and you can come ashore and find this kind of strange structure just sticking out of the ground. So we'll disembark at this point, and I would recommend just saving your game as usual before we do anything new. And we'll head on in, and there's actually 2 Guardian forces that we can lay claim to in this region. Although the second, which is Odin, he's found in the upper section and he's just spoke to us. I'm not going to get that at this particular point in time. It's probably better off that we do that a little bit later. So we're just going to be going for the main, or the first Guardian force, which is found in the lower section, which is the Tonberry Guardian force. So we're going to be just concentrating on the lower section of this region for now. Tonberry has, as a Guardian force, has some awesome abilities that we can learn, so we do want to get him sooner rather than later. Now, this timer is going to be a bit of a thing we need to work around. It's actually the timer for Odin, not for Tonberry, so it doesn't matter if we reset it. We can just leave the area, go back in, and the timer resets. So, what we need to do is, first of all, make sure we're not equipping encounter none. So we'll get that removed sooner rather than later, in all honesty. I usually just replace it with Mug, since it's quite a useful ability. But what we want to do is have random encounters, and we only want to stay in the lower sections of the area. We don't want to head up to the, I think it's the 5th screen. We move on to the upper area of the Centra Ruins. And we want to fight Tonberries. Now, the reason we want to fight Tonberries is because once we've killed so many of them, I think it's 20, or it's usually a random amount around that number, could be up to 24, then we'll actually get to face the GF himself, the Tonberry King. Okay, and then after so many battles, you will be able to find the Tonberry King. Now, if you can get this guy at level 30, he will actually have full life to draw, which obviously is a particularly useful ability, very, very strong for junctioning. So you might want to bear that in mind. He's not actually level 30 for me here, so I can't actually draw it. But by all means, if you want to level up your characters, then, you know, or boost up your character's power, then you might want to look at just using some of your high level characters to try and get Tonberry King here at level 30. Just make sure that you're saving when you get to about 17, 18 Tonberries after every fight, because he literally does come in once you've killed a Tonberry, that it's not a new battle or anything. And you'll want to have a high amount of time left on this Odin counter, since you don't want to ruin the Odin GF for later on, or the ability to get that. But especially if you're drawing, you're going to want a high amount of time. And really, you want to try and get Squall's Limit Break active, in all honesty. That's such a good way of killing this guy. But otherwise, it's a similar fight to the actual Tonberries themselves, with the exception that he doesn't actually come any closer to you and do his one-hit death attack. He does counter with an ability that does 30 times, does damage equal to 30 times the amount of enemies that character's killed. So you will have to watch out for that. And he does have a junk attack which does random damage to every character, so it can do a potentially large amount or a potentially low amount. That seems to have bugged out the graphics for me after he's done that ability. Well, that's, yeah, seems to be playing up a bit, but as long as we can get through the fight, then that's the main thing. So I've managed to get Squall into his limit here. Tonberry King basically one-shots him, and when I use Phoenix down, it's kept his limit break nice and active. So hopefully we'll get to cast this a few times now. This finisher is probably one of my least favourite finishers because it doesn't do that much damage, but it does have a substantially long cast time in all honesty, which makes it a little bit frustrating. Lionheart is the best finisher. It's akin to Cloud's final limit break. But there goes the Tonberry. Reduced to dust, as they say. He's sorry. Look, he's nice deep down. He's friendly. It gives us the Royal Crown, which allows the GF to learn the magic plus 60% ability. Very nice. And 21 AP as well. Simon, Brothers, Leviathan, all learning things. You get to name your new Guardian Force. And what this Guardian Force gives us in terms of abilities is, well, you can't really see them all yet, but Haggle and Familiar are basically very, very useful. We're going to want to start levelling those up. And there's a nice little trick now to get some AP farming done. But I'm going to show it you, but not actually really do it all that much, for the main reason that we're going to be getting another Guardian Force as part of the main game story quite soon, with not much fighting before then. So it makes sense to collect him, I always find, before we actually do the GF farming. But I will show you the area because you might want to, you know, do a little bit now perhaps just to get some abilities learned. So what you want to do is park the garden here. If you look on the map where I am, there's a kind of beach that you can land on. It's only a small one. But then if you're heading through between these cliffs here and just follow the mountain range around, you'll eventually find yourself coming into a desert type area, which is where we can encounter cactuars. And cactuars give 20 AP for every one you kill. So a very, very useful GP farming solution. One thing I did forget to mention is make sure you give Tonberry to your defensive character, in this case Quistis for me. So she has Brothers, Carbuncle, Leviathan and Tonberry. And he's going to be learning, to begin with, on my side of things, the Familiar ability, because that will allow us to buy rarer items from shops. And then we'll go to Haggle after that. One thing about the cactuars, when you fight them, they like to run away, and they have a very high chance of being missed when you hit them. So one thing I would recommend is use Squall, because he has a 255% hit rate. And if you have triple, then you can stick that onto the hit ability of one of your other characters. And later on when we have Selfie, her ultimate weapon also has 255% hit. But as I said, I wouldn't spend too much time farming them now. But if you want to have a look at what they're about, then by all means do so. Let's just remove the ability of Quistis that stops us, not Quistis, we know that stops us encountering enemies. And we'll just go for a good old magic plus 40%. And it's in this desert, which is got a bit of a strange name, to be honest. I can't think what it's called. Cash Bowl Desert or something. But that isn't what we want. Okay, so this is more like it. And we probably won't get to kill both of these, unfortunately, if either. You do kind of have to be somewhat lucky. So we've managed to get one, which is fine. Obviously, if we'd have managed to kill both of them, we'd have got a nice 40 AP. The good thing about these is you don't level up really either, because they give such a small amount of experience. There we go, 20 AP, that's like a boss amount of AP in one easy fight. Hit Point Junction, at last we've learned Hit Point Junction. We can also give Quistis magic now as our defensive character. Let's just go ahead and looks like, what's it? will be best here, Death. And then if we go into Renoa, she can finally, or whoever's using our magic set can finally actually get some hit points, which is nice. So regen is best, in all honesty. And then we'll stick some defense on here. Protect will do fine. And I'll just kill a few cactuars and then we'll move on. Okay, so I've done a little bit of farming there, not a tremendous amount, probably about 8 or 9 battles, but I've learned some decent abilities now on my Guardian forces, which is pretty useful. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick the ability back on Renoa, so that we can't get any more battles now, for the time being anyway. Encounter none, that's the one. And we'll head back to the ship. Just try and get my bearings a little bit. We need to make our way back out of the desert area. And we've still got some optional stuff to do. But this is me showing you the most optimal farming place in the game. So when I say, for example, right, you've got a new Guardian Force, go and do your cactuar farming, then this is where you need to refer to find out what it is that I'm talking about. I've got myself into a pickle because I'm chatting. Let's see where we are. Ah, okay, I'll get to the ship. Okay, so I've come up to the northern continent, which is where we'll find Schumi village, in fact. Okay, so we've not been here before, and we can only actually access this place on discs 2 and 3. So everything we want to get done here, we do need to get done before we proceed onto disc 4 a little bit later. So one thing I recommend before you go in is give your magic character, in my case Renoa, the highest magic stat possible. I've managed to get Renoa's magic stat to 140 by equipping Death on her magic stats, and also all the magic plus abilities. So this is just a temporary thing, we can change these around again afterwards. And magic plus 60%, by the way, I learned by teaching the royal crown that we collected a little bit earlier on, and I gave that to Siren. But Siren couldn't learn magic plus 60% because her abilities were full. But if you use amnesia greens, which you can get from any of the pet shops, such as the one at Timber for example, then you can forget abilities on GFs to make space for more. And abilities that are good to forget are abilities such as GF and item and magic and draw, because all GFs come with those anyway. You only need one GF on a character to actually have those abilities. So I just unlearned the magic ability of Siren to make room for that plus 60% magic. And then when you're ready, you want to go ahead and save your game, because there's going to be a draw point. And I know what you're saying, we don't normally go to this kind of extreme before we access a draw point, but this particular draw point is ultima, and ultima is basically the best magic in the entire game, and it's very, very hard to come by. Now we're going to be coming back to this village, Schumi village, multiple times, so that we can eventually use this single draw point to max out a character's ultimate magic. The downside is you do have to pay 5,000 gil to draw from this draw point. But if you get a low draw, remember 15 is the most you can get, use your character that you've just boosted magic on, and if you get a low draw, just reload your game. 13's pretty good, so I'll be happy with that. Make sure that the draw point's actually available. Obviously, we could still pay now, but there'd be no point because the draw point hasn't yet replenished. And we'll be coming back here constantly. I'll tell you when to do so in between different quests and whatnot, so that we can add up our ultima magics. So we have 13 now. So 13 is not really going to be much to junction to anything. I'm not going to bother with that. But as we start to boost it up, you'll quickly find that it's very, very powerful. Okay? So, as I say, pointless at the moment, but that's because we've only got 13. We do need to keep stocking that up. The goal is, by the end of Disc 3, to have at least one character with maxed out ultimas with 100 ultima. So that's the first thing we need to do here in Schumi Village. Right, I've just checked and apparently I have clocked up 30 minutes of video time here now. So I am going to be finishing off the episode. It's actually taken me, believe it or not, around about all day to make this single episode because there's been so much editing involved and rubbish to cut out of the video in terms of the farming stuff we were doing with the cards and the AP farming, the tonberry killing and all that kind of good stuff. So although you only get a 30-minute episode, there is a lot of work involved in just putting out one of these kinds of farming helpful walkthrough type videos. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it and that it has been helpful to you. As always, please don't forget to just hit that like button on YouTube and come back next time as we continue on with more side quest optional content here in Final Fantasy VIII, and we'll get into the Schumi Village quest proper then. Until then guys, take care and I'll see you soon.